Well, many parents, including myself, have mixed feelings when it comes to your kids going back to school. And sometimes you have your own anxiety, that sense of anxiety because you're worried about how do you prepare your kid and get them ready for school. Well, Dr. Zach is back with some great ideas when it comes to the health of your children. And I think, Dr. Zach, the first thing is sleep. Right? Your kids have been, I know my kids, they are sleeping very differently than when they go to school. How do we get them back into the proper sleep pattern?
So as you know, sleep is important. It's important to focus. It's important to growth. It's important to energy and mood as well.
Right.
And a lot of kids, especially if they're not in a camp where they have to get up at a certain time, they're waking up late. Mm-hmm. The problem is if they continue to do that, they're not going to fall asleep at a good time. And so when they have to wake up at 7 a.m. for the first day of school, they're going to be exhausted, and that's going to start things off in a non-positive way. So what you want to try and do is get them into a regular school-esque schedule of sleep right away, like starting now.
Like tomorrow morning, or tonight, I should say, there should be a specific
They got to wake up at a reasonable time so that they're actually tired in the evening so they can actually get enough sleep, because kids need at least 9 hours of sleep.
Yeah, let's talk about, depending on age groups, how much time, much sleep do they need?
Young school kids, like we're talking closer to 5, we're talking like 11 hours of sleep. Okay. Like 6 to 13, we're talking a good 10 hours of sleep. And as they get a bit older, like teenagers, we say 9, although some of them can sleep for 12 hours, as you know. So
I know
the key is, everyone's a bit different, but the key is for them to get enough sleep for them.
Let's move on to diet. Diet's so important. Of course, we've all heard it time and time again. Breakfast, of course, being the most important meal for a lot of different reasons, right?
Well, it's a good way to start the day. It's a good way to get things rolling so the kids have enough energy. It also shows that they've gotten up, that they've spent the time, that it's not a mad rush.
Right.
Because, like you were saying, there's a lot of anxiety, not just for kids, but for adults. And the first day of school, the more that you can plan these things ahead of time and plan their meals and plan their sleep, the better it will bode better for the rest of the year and for starting the school year off to the right.
And do you think we get a little lazy in the summer and maybe, it's more treats and, going out for dinners and ice cream?
That's okay, you're allowed treats.
Yeah, absolutely.
But during the school day, if you're having you're having tons and tons of sugar or fat, and the kids are having big crashes where right after lunch, like many of us, a big lunch, we're like falling asleep. It's not helping. It's not helping for focus. It's not helping for energy. And for all the other things that go along with school, the things that really stress kids out, which is the social stuff.
Yeah.
If they're not all there, you're putting them at a bit of a disadvantage. They're just not able to focus and interact properly, and that's important.
Let's move on to talking about backpacks, because this is something I don't think we give enough thought to. First of all, what's sort of the maximum weight that a child should be carrying in their backpack?
The recommended is about 10 to 15%, maximum 15% of their weight.
Okay.
So I still use the old pounds. So let's say a 70-pound kid shouldn't be carrying a backpack more than 10 pounds. Okay. And because we sometimes see, with my kids also, I see them. They're carrying around basically these backpacks weigh practically as much as they do. So you have to figure out a way either to leave some books at home, if necessary, have books in both places. You can have duplicates. If they really have to have a super heavy backpack, you can consider one of those rolling backpacks.
Oh yeah, that's.
But otherwise, just try and keep it reasonable. They don't have to be carrying all this stuff. And the other thing is a backpack that fits. So a nice broad back with padding. They should be wearing both straps. I remember from my childhood, it's never cool to wear both straps. Maybe it's coming back in.
The one shoulder.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But maybe it's coming back in. But because the problem is, we're not talking about them having severe back problems as a result. Most kids are very healthy. But if they start to have back and neck and shoulder pain as a kid as a result of this, those kids are more likely to have those problems as they get older.
Another important subject, digital devices, digital screens. Let's talk a little bit about that and the importance of it.
Well, it has to be limited, And kids, I think one of the most important things, and we'll talk about, if we have time, we'll talk about anxiety too. One of the most important things is taking the time to talk to your kids. And one of the things to talk to them about is their phones and is being on screens. And the wrong thing to do or to happen is for them to come home from school and go straight up to the room and be on a screen for 4 hours.
Yeah.
And if they don't know what's safe and what's unsafe, and they don't know they're not supposed to share their information with the world, the internet world, it's dangerous.
They
and
need
not only
to be
that,
educated.
When they're on the screen, even if they're playing a game with a friend who's at home, they're still not outside. Like when it's beautiful weather like this, if they're on a screen for hours, they're not outside, they're not creating, they're not actually interacting with people.
Quickly, you mentioned anxiety. Let's touch on that.
There's a lot of it. And parents have a lot of it, and kids sense it too. It's any transition, there's a lot of anxiety. And there's a lot of school pressure, and kids are worried about their new class and their new teacher and bullying and fitting in and that sort of thing. The main thing is to talk about it. Make sure that your kids know. Don't be on your phone. Sit down with your kid and say, listen, Talk to me. I'm feeling anxious. You're probably feeling anxious. And you can work through things. If you've talked about it, you can work through things, and you can come up with strategies so they can hit the ground running on day one.
Yeah, and it's important to just keep asking questions. You know, you're not going. Sometimes you say, I don't want to annoy my kid by continuing asking him. It's very important to keep those lines of communication open.
Shows that you're interested.
Yeah, and Dr. Zach, more information. Obviously, at all times, as you know, Dr. Zach has his blog on our website, btmontreal.ca, to find out more. We'll be back with more Breakfast Television, including your headline news. A long-standing West Island MNA is being forced out. We'll tell you why.